everyone. Welcome to the Missouri Instructional Leaders Network, where we bring together Missouri instructional leaders to share their experiences, grow professional relationships, and build curriculum instruction skills. I am Valerie Montgomery, and I'm here with my fellow host, Shauna Stefanchik. And this morning, we're chatting with the masterminds behind the Literacy Link, Jessica Garrison and Amber Huskey. Good morning, ladies.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Good
thank
morning.
you for being here. Before we get into our topic, which is standards and curriculum, can you tell us a little bit about the Literacy Link and your story of what you all do and how it came to be?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Literacy Link is my baby, I guess. I have lots of them, but is my baby that I started, I don't even know, like maybe 14 years ago or so. I did that, I was a teacher, I was an elementary school principal, district level administrator, managing a charter school district. And then I really kind of fell in love with the professional development aspect of my job there. Wearing a million hats as a district administrator, you can kind of figure out like what really is your niche. And I wanted to keep doing that while I also found the life balance, work-life balance of being a mom of multiple kids, and created the Literacy Link so we could provide teachers differentiated instruction and development. Because what I was finding was that we would send, I was part of a group that we would send professional development to schools. And it was like, doesn't matter where you're at on the continuum of learning, like here's what you get and here's what you're going to learn about. And I really wanted to create something very intentional and specific for teachers that they could learn on the track that they wanted to, and actually have a little bit of choice into how they wanted to learn it and what they wanted to learn about. And so the Literacy Link, really, honestly, the model is to mirror what we expect of teachers with that gradual release approach in the classroom, is that we want to support teachers in that same way. We use the district's strategic planning goals to then set goals for teachers and figure out what path does the individual teacher or school or grade level need to be on. And we take them through that learning, whether it's in planning, actual learning and development in their professional learning community, whether it's modeling or co-teaching. We wear all sorts of hats. I mean, some of our team members actually model constantly small group lessons to give teachers opportunities to see what the planning looks like and the implementation, but we do all sorts of things. One of the things that we're doing a lot of right now is supporting schools with their comprehensive literacy plans or curriculum writing and development and assessment development. And so we were kind of excited about you approaching us about this topic because it's hot for us right now and we're knee deep in, and we work in tons of districts. So we have multiple schools across the St. Louis area. We've had schools in Texas for years. We're opening a school in Denver, Windmill School of Denver, that we're super excited about, that we are the curriculum and instruction directors, or I am, but my team will support us in their development there. And on the horizon, we've started Windmill STL to open that same school model here in St. Louis. And so with the emphasis and support on making sure that teachers have what they need to be the best and most effective that they can be in the classroom, so that way kids have a really genuine, authentic experience and can learn in the way that they need to and deserve.
Wow, thank you. That's a big package there. I would love to have you guys back and let's talk more about the literacy plan. Let's talk more about your school in Denver. But let's get into would you say, like, when you're working with all these different schools and they're trying to pinpoint the professional development that their teachers need, what are some of the trends that you see?
Well, first of all, teachers never feel like they have the right resources, right? And then we always back them up, and schools really don't have the right curriculum in place either. I mean, schools are constantly rewriting their curriculum. They're constantly revising what they're doing. And so that's what I love working with Shauna. And I felt like, the stars aligned and we met for a reason, was because we're like doing this same work, but she had the approach already in place that we're trying to get teachers on schools on track with, because schools in themselves just have, they hire teachers to come in. Teachers always don't feel confident to write curriculum or do this work, but yet they're hired to do it. And then in the end, it isn't vetted, or no one really made sure that it was aligned in a scope and sequence that makes sense. So I say all that to say districts have all these pieces that aren't really exactly what they want. And then most importantly, they don't always have the resources that align with the 5 components of reading to ensure that all of those components of a comprehensive literacy structure are in place every single day, and then have the resources to support teachers to teach into all of those. So we're constantly finding ways to support districts, first of all, to make sure they have those pieces. And then second of all, training teachers to understand what exactly should I be doing every day in my core reading block? And then what are the right resources to support my instruction?
And what kind of impact, once you get those right pieces in place, what kind of impact have you seen it have on instruction and in classrooms?
Well, I feel, and Amber, chime in whenever you want to, but I feel why I created this business was really not just like the self-gratification of like, wow, we're doing something great out here, but really to get teachers to step back and go, what I'm doing is working, or I finally totally understand what high quality phonics instruction should look like. I understand what explicit and systematic instruction should look like and feel like. And in the end, students are growing because of it. And we have data to support that. Really supporting teachers to understand what all kids need. We've created a lot of instructional design models for schools this year that show them what's that. And I have, visuals if you want to see them, but, what should all students have access to every single day in their core reading block? Everyone should have a mini lesson of some sort. Everyone should have access to phonics or phonemic awareness, depending upon what grade level you're teaching. Everyone should have a shared reading experience. Everyone should have an independent practice. All kids receive a small group, but helping teachers manage all of those things that I just talked about and put it together in a comprehensive way is the struggle. But once we get teachers to kind of understand that model and get to that flow and see how it all fits together, their sense of, wow, this really does work and feels good every single day. Then Amber and I always talk about, gosh, when the light bulb comes on for teachers of like, this is what it's supposed to feel like, that helps us know like we're doing the right work.
I would say one of the biggest differences with Literacy Link and some of the other just professional development that teachers can get in Missouri or the St. Louis is that we really believe in frequency matters. And so the way that the Literacy Link business plan is set up is that we want to see teachers several times throughout the whole year instead of just coming in once, for a 2-hour PD and then never seeing those teachers again or in the next year. We really try to get into classrooms once a week, every 2 weeks and see that impact over time and really try to coach those teachers and not just like a sit and get professional development, which makes a huge difference in our districts.
And as you can see, I'm at a school, like this is what we do. We're in and out of classrooms. I got kicked out of a place, so I will be kicked out again soon, I'm sure. But, part of the work with the Literacy Link that we really overemphasize to schools is that we need to be there frequently. We need to be on the ground. We need to be in classrooms. We need to be not only teaching teachers what they need, but then also being a part of seeing if the implementation is the way that we're teaching them and at the level of understanding that we hope that they take away from our development, and then in the classrooms and supporting them in real time.
So Jessica, I wanted to ask a question because a big thing right now and a big shift we're doing in general, and I think a lot of people are worried about the science of reading and the current programming that they have in place. Do you have any suggestions for them as far as, you're just rattling off the components. Again, that's another whole course, right? Of just helping people understand what are the things that should be part of our literacy block, because now I think there's been a lot of cognitive dissonance around what is good literacy and how do I know if we should keep this resource or do something else? We're waiting for this list from the state. Anything you could share around, oh, look, you've got it right there.
Yeah, and what you just said, Shauna, with, just what happened on Friday afternoon with the assessments that were released and the reaction from schools. And we all thought we've been doing so much great and teaching our teachers up on the science of reading and what are those critical components that should happen every single day. And then when we saw the list of assessments and we thought, this doesn't match what we've been teaching them at all. The reaction from schools of now what, and kind of having
and they're required with those assessments.
Right. And then having the panic of like, we've been teaching teachers that these assessments that we're putting into practice are working because we can see the growth of students, not only in the data, but actually in their practical application. I mean, we can see kids are reading and they're able to comprehend, and they have phonemic awareness, and their phonics development is really growing. What's the assessment now that's going to give us those same results and make us feel like what we're doing is working? But no matter what, I feel like making sure that teachers understand that reading is so complex, right? And that there are a lot of components that are involved with it, making sure that teachers understand what is explicit and systematic and diagnostic instruction mean before we can start looking at curriculum and resources, right? Teachers have to understand those instructional practices first. And then, one of the things that I've been preaching for, since 2000, the year 2000, when the National Reading Panel developed what they think are the 5 components of reading. I mean, we've been using this for years. This document is so old that we've been using for years because this is the science of reading. Kids need to have proficiency in all of these areas, and then teachers really having a strong understanding of the skills that fall under each of those. And then what does that instruction look like? Regardless of the curriculum resources that you use, this is important. And then when you look at Missouri's learning standards, they're written to align exactly with the 5 components, right?
But don't you think a barrier, I mean, it's one that I see as a consultant, is we have a resource for our phonics instruction, then we have a resource for comprehension, and we have this, and then teachers are totally overwhelmed because it is complex. But then each one of those resources is written to be 90 minutes a day.
Yes.
And so helping people to understand how they all connect. And I wonder if you also agree, disagree. I didn't agree with every assessment on that list that came out. Sorry.
Agree with any of them.
I just have to blah. If you are just using NWEA to say, you are missing the boat. A K through 1, and I'm a first grade teacher, people. Come on.
Don't even get me started, Sean.
I know, that's what I was like, you can. Okay, so let's just say, but I think the state's put us in a place now that you have to, but those are the things that you have to do. But if you really want to know your reader, you need to be doing running records and assessing these things on the list.
Absolutely. And as much as people want to, I hate to even go here with this, but Amber, I'm going to go here. But as much as people hate Lucy Calkins for whatever reason they hate her for, it's all about, to me, deciding on what you're utilizing resources for. I mean, if you're using them to be your phonics and phonemic awareness program, then yeah, that's a problem. But if you're using them for other reasons, like the other end of Scarborough's rope, like to develop fluency for your readers, whether it's fluency in decoding or vocabulary or oral language development or comprehension, that could be a great resource. But what she did do in her new units is she created this great phonics assessment that is how I'm going to support teachers and deciding on decodables, because that's another big thing that teachers are struggling with. So if we're stuck with these terrible assessments that the state suggested and we can't use the ones that we know actually work, like FastBridge or Acadians, then we will use other resources like those phonics assessments that were created to help teachers decide what set of skills does this reader need to be working on in small group, and then what decodables can I put into their hands, and then what level text are they ready for based upon their phonics skills. So we as consultants will have to then support schools again into finding those assessments that are going to help them with instruction, because right now those assessments aren't going to help them figure out what's next for their students.
I just want us to be bold and explicit in stating that those are recommended, and that can be stated and what you have to prove in, but you're missing the boat if you only use those, because that will not help you in the day-to-day.
Absolutely.
Put it out there. State hate me. I don't care. That's it. Okay.
Well, I mean, whoever has to give NWEA to a kindergartner, I feel like someone in the state needs to come do that and then realize how, to be honest with you, when they're all oral language and that's the assessment that we're giving them and it's computerized, where is the teacher one-on-one with the student where they're taking anecdotal notes and they notice when a student hesitates and they notice when a child is struggling a little bit or they pause? Like, that's important data that we need as teachers to figure out what some of those next steps are. And I know I'm getting like amped up and passionate, but we've been working on assessment all year and finding the right pieces that align with these 5 components and feel like we're finally there with so many teachers. And here we go again with the giant change that I don't think makes sense.
I can tell you, I've given NWEA to kindergarten, first and second grade, and it is not fun. And it's 50 plus questions of independent computer time. So it's not telling me anything that I need to know about my reader.
Yeah. Thank you. I wanted to vent that too. I appreciate okay. So any other, I mean, there's so many things I feel like we could bring you back on for, to help people with clarity of their components.
Yeah, well, one of the things I wanted to talk about a little bit, we kind of mentioned it, Shauna, but like that comprehensive approach and like really supporting teachers and schools into, it's one thing to have a curriculum and understand how to unpack your standards, but like, once I have that, how am I doing it? And so, what are the components that should be in there every single day? What does that look like? We really try and work with districts to kind of paint that picture of, if you're in Missouri, everyone has the same standards. So that's the even playing field there. So there's no question about that, right? We're all accountable for the same expectations in the end, but every district kind of approaches it different and kind of the resources that they have, or are they expecting, what's their comprehensive approach that they expect? Is it just the way that it's lined out in the resources, or do they expect a little something different? For example, my districts who still use the units of study, shared reading is kind of like an afterthought, but we expect for it to be right in there, right after phonics or inside their block. So that's an additional component that we attach to their literacy framework. And so districts to kind of step back and really analyze, like, what do we expect and who are we and what do we believe in when it comes to literacy instruction? And then, what's that intervention model that our school has? And then are we doing a gradual release, but how do we get to this? Like, how do we get to their comprehensive model? And what are all the pieces that we want teachers to learn about and know? So that way, every kid, it's an equity thing, right? Classroom to classroom, they have the same experiences because we have a model that we all believe in and we all implement.
And this is another soapbox, but I just want to go there. In your last slide or one of them, it talks about tier 1. I feel like there's been so much emphasis on RTI and intervention. And I just want to say, if you do a really good job in tier 1, then, and I think that's what's missing in schools. And this is why I love the model and the clarity of, I think we're missing the boat in education. We are reorganizing the school around this RTI model, when if we just focused on our tier 1 and the things you're offering here, and we did it tight, and really good up front, I call it chasing rabbits. The less rabbits you'd have to chase because we have these key components in place.
Shauna, that's exactly where, like, as the literacy link, when we start a new contract with schools, that's the number one thing we do. We actually usually do a sweep of the building and do our own data diagnostic, in a sense, to say, based upon your core instruction, here's what we see consistently going on, and this is what we have to work on first. And in Kirkwood specifically, when we started there a couple of years ago, and we helped them with their comprehensive framework, we knew we had to start with core instruction before we could talk about anything else. But once we did that for an entire year, we're working with fabulous teachers that just kind of needed a little support on what it could look like and how to put it together. We're already moved on to then what happens for tier 2, and we've got tier 3 was already something they had in place as well, but it was that middle piece that was missing. What else do we need to do for kids who kind of are in the middle there? So making sure that that tier 1 instruction is in place is exactly what our focus is always up front.
I just think it gets missed a lot. We skip over it and we make it harder on ourselves rather than starting on the front end. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
I know I'm like going all over the place, and really our focus today was talking about standards, but I always find myself, I mean, Valerie, you kind of asked it to begin with schools, but I always find myself going back to, let's just step back for a second and talk about what's your approach in general in order to figure out where the standards instruction fits in with teachers, so they can see where does that fit in. So where am I teaching this set of standards in my block? Is that for my mini lesson? Where am I teaching this set of standards? Where does that fit into my world? Teachers need us to help them make those connections.
And I love that your team uses our tools too, with our assessment and teaching tools when it comes to, and then what is the clarity about those standards. So it's just been really neat to partner with you guys, because we're really trying to work in unison, and you guys, your team, really brings boots on the ground and provides more. We're trying to give people systems, tools, and structures where you can come in and really help the implementation of that. So
let me tell you, in a week and a half, I've been in, well, this is 3 different districts in a week and a half, and we've all been working on whether they purchase proficiency scales from Marzano, or they're creating their own scales of some sort, or they're trying to write, you know, their rubrics or whatever they want to call them. I immediately pulled out my MAT book, my Step Up book, and said, let's just look here at how she represents the scale. What's a 4 for this standard? What's a 3? And immediately, you know, the teachers are like, can people buy us this? Because this is already done. It's already clear. There's not a ton of language. You know, Marzanos are wonderful, but dear Lord, it takes you 20 minutes to read one proficiency scale because it's so wordy.
Yes.
But
well, and it's not specific. Yeah.
Yeah, it's right. And then that you're, so I mean, that is literally 3 times in 1 week that I've pulled that out to say, let's just take a look at this for a second and see, you know, if we understand where kids, you know, what's proficiency, where can we take them up? Where do we need to pull them down? But that's been such a wonderful resource. And honestly, your framework that you created for your curriculum management tool, you know, we've used that obviously in districts that are using it, that you're using it with, but the idea of it is really what schools need to house it. Teachers love something that everything's housed in one place. And then for me as a developer, let's just pull our management tool up. Let's look at our lessons. Let's look at our assessments that go with it. It's all in one place right now. Teachers hate nothing more than like, it's over here, it's over here, it's over here. And it's not all in one place. Teachers work so hard, especially elementary teachers who teach 100 subjects a day. I say 100 because I keep feeling like the state keeps adding subjects that we're teaching. And so teachers have a lot to plan when it's all in one place. It's kind of like their thematic approach in a sense that we know makes the most sense.
Well, and you started off the call saying, and this is why we get along so well, because our heart is to really, the biggest issue I think we're dealing with right now in education is teacher retention and support. And so what we're both really passionate about, and I love that there's got to be systems in place, and we're not coming prepared. We haven't been, let's just not be real. We were not, none of us were prepared by college to come into this profession.
Oh no.
And so districts are trying on the back end to help. And I think this work is so pivotal because we're losing amazing teachers if we don't figure out ways to make it easier and more succinct. So I just love that your company does that. You have amazing results. You work with some of the biggest and best in the St. Louis area. And I appreciate you guys sharing these things today as we're like in this goal of really trying to help teachers understand, because if the target is clear for teachers, guess what? You'll reach it.
Absolutely. I really believe that. And I want teachers excited about learning too. So the last thing I was going to say is we're doing some book studies this summer. And so stay tuned. We're going to try and get that out in some way. It's like, I'm still knee deep in doing the schoolwork, so I can't find time to put the summer work out yet, but we're going to do one on leading literate lives. Amber and I love Stephanie Affinito. She was on our podcast before, but this book gives teachers a new look at how to build reading and writing habits for kids, or even for as adults, and how to get them excited. So that's one we're going to do. The Conscious Classroom, we've actually had these ladies on our podcast as well, but they really talk about how to think about diversity in a different way. It's not just about color all the time, that we need to think about people, you know, that diversity amongst people in general, and really recognize that, and then make sure that we're weaving that into our classroom for literature. And then my most favorite, Wiley Blevins, his decodable text. Teachers are still struggling and figuring out, how do I use decodable text in a very thoughtful way? And I love his work. He does a really good job of breaking it down very simple for teachers. So I'm going to do some of those book studies this summer, and we'd love to have people join us if they want to. So stay tuned for that.
How would people join you, or are you still figuring out the logistics?
I'm still figuring it out. So if you have any ideas and advice, like I'm doing some of them in the districts that we contract with, and they push them out to teachers, but we're trying to get it out to teachers we have a lot of listeners to our podcast, and Amber does a great job of keeping up with our social media. So I'm still working on the details of that. Like I said, every time I feel like I have a little bit of time, I have another meeting with a teacher or a school schedule something, which I'm never going to turn away a school. That's my priority. So finding the time to like nail it down, but stay tuned. I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks I have something.
Okay, I have an idea. So let's talk about that.
Awesome. I will take it.
So where would, if our members wanted to find out more information about Literacy Link and maybe even start working with you all, how would they do that?
So the literacylink.org is our website, and they can contact us directly through there. There are emails on there, our phone numbers on there. And then of course our podcast is on there if they're wanting to list a little bit more. We do have people that reach out to us through our podcast as well. So those are great places and easy ways to connect with us.
Okay, awesome. Shauna, did you have any other questions?
No, I unmuted myself so I'd stop.
Oh.
Because I'm passionate. Well, thank you guys so much. Of course, we think the world of you and the great work you're doing. And listeners who are on here and leaders watching, stay tuned because we're going to have them on and possibly be hopefully offering a course to help you with your comprehensive literacy plan. Talk about the busy work. But you write plans, but we want you to actually use the plan that you write. And so, and make it high quality. So stay tuned for that. And we're happy to work with you on that next project.
Yes, thanks for having us. And I'm sorry about all the background noise. I literally have kids walking all around me. So thank you.
That's okay. That's the real school. So
Great.
all right. Well, thank you so much for being here.
All right. Take care.